Now, Katya, welcome so
Jason,
much to the show. How are you today?
I am very well. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting for me.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm really excited to have you on and have the audience get to know you. Like I've gotten to get to know you over the last few months, which is a really good way to introduce yourself. So yeah, like why don't you share for the audience a little bit about who you are and we'll go from there.
I am a portrait photographer and Gallup certified strengths coach. I help people discover their strengths and capitalize on them and see their beauty.
Up and see that. Okay, so you can find my strengths. We'll coach in the strengths, and you can do my pictures as well. So you can do all of it.
Yes, yes,
I love it. I'm sure we'll be here, and I know about the Gallup strengths, obviously. So I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about that today because that
yes.
is stuff that I am fascinated in as well. Well, thanks for being on. So the first thing I want to do is let the audience know how we know each other or how we met. So Katya and I met at a speed networking event. I want to say it was July of this
Yeah.
year. So we've known each other now for about 5 months. We've gotten to know each other. And Katya has actually done some Strengthsfinder work with me, which has been phenomenal. And the thing that strikes me about that event, if I'm not mistaken, it was pouring rain. So I remember so I remember like walking into the bar there. It's a bar by Union Square here in New York City. And I remember like walking in a little bit wet and like literally 30 seconds later, it just absolutely downpoured. So a few of the people who came to that. So a speed networking event is like a speed dating event. Not that I've been to a speed dating event, but you go married for 10 years. Katya has been married for even longer. You go and you sit down at a table and you rotate every 3 to 5 minutes. So you get a chance to shake hands with people, tell them what you're about. And so I'm not actually sure if you and I met at that part of the event, but we definitely struck up a great conversation at
Afterwards,
the
I
end of
feel
the
like,
event.
yeah.
Exactly. So time-honored tradition here in the show is sharing our first impressions of each other when we met at that event. And I know that we've never talked about this, so I always find this is fun because you learn a lot about yourself, and the guests usually learn something about them. So I'm going to have you go first. So when we first met, what was your first impression of me?
Okay. First of all, I would like to say that I don't like networking events because I feel like it's a little bit, I don't know. It's like you get 2 seconds to talk to someone, and what can you learn about the person in 2 seconds? So it feels, not authentic to me all the time. And so my first impression of you was that you actually really wanted to get to know me, and you were fun. You are, and I think we talked about this when we were talking about strengths, that you have this amazing talent of talking to people and bringing something what they're interested in right away, and that builds this very amazing conversation. And I also remember you told me that it was like a month before we met or something like that, you went into coaching full time, which was super exciting for me to hear because I always applaud people who take that leap. So that was amazing, and then we started like nerding out about all of this like coaching stuff, which was fun. You struck me as a very warm person who is genuinely interested in the person they're talking to, and you do have this energy about you that you do truly want to help.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Katya. That means a lot. I would say everything that was good because my first impression on you is the impression that I want to give off. Not always the feedback I get from my guests. Calling you out, Michael Hudson, but it's actually good. It's actually a really cool way to learn about yourself. So, so my impression of you is that you are. I could tell that networking events were not your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the impression of you that I had was actually something you said about yourself around the speed networking. My impression of you is you're somebody who wants to have a real conversation, and you don't want to flip business cards.
Right.
You don't want to like shake hands and talk about products or try to sell anybody anything. You want to connect it. I don't know if I ever told you this. I'm not sure if I did or not. I actually went to that networking event with a specific plan in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And my plan, and I actually wrote a blog on this, it was really fun. My plan was Don't hand out a business card unless somebody specifically asks you for it.
Right.
Don't tell anybody what you do unless somebody specifically asks you for it. And in any conversation, talk 20% of the time or less.
Right.
Like, and I went in with it.
Yeah. Like from what I remember, when I met you, you did pretty well. You definitely struck me as someone who listens, and this is, I think, today in our society, I feel like this is what we're lacking sometimes. It's somebody who will genuinely listen to me, who will try to help me either, figure out what my issue or solution is. I mean, the struggle that I'm having, right? And so this can be accomplished when you actually listen to someone, not talking.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it probably says a lot about my personality that I have to have an intention to not talk. But it was fun. Yeah. And so my impression of you is like, not cold, but just like, hey, this is somebody who wants to like actually build a relationship. And we ended up having a really good conversation. And then I remember seeing you and Michael, Katya's husband, Michael. Happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes. Today, for everybody who's listening, today is December 2nd. December 2nd. Congratulations. I remember running into you again, and then we ended up starting doing some coaching work together. So my first impression of you is like somebody who's deep. You obviously have the air of an artist to you as well. So I could tell that you were doing something in the arts, which is interesting because I find like coaching, a lot of people think coaching is very like scientific and giving advice, but I think it's a really big art form as well. And through my work with you and the Gallups thing, you're definitely artistic in the way you deliver the information as well. So sounds like our first impressions of each other were pretty spot on, which is super cool because that has not always been the case, but it's all good either way. So let's get into it today. And let's hop in and can't wait for the audience to know you. So
let's do
first question for you. Yeah. What is something that you nerd out about?
I think recently, and even from our first conversation at that networking event, I do talk a lot about people's talents and strengths. I don't know, like I took the Strengthsfinder test 6 years ago and it just completely blew my mind. And I just wouldn't shut up talking about it to people. And last year, I finally, rather earlier this year, oh my God, time flies so fast. It feels like it was a year ago. I found out that they do coaching programs. So I went ahead and I did it. So yes, I do love every conversation that I have with a person. Not that I'm looking for it necessarily, but somehow it happens that whatever the person tells me about themselves, I can see sort of, areas where I could help by talking to them, by inspiring them to look into their strengths rather than, focusing on the weaknesses. And I don't know, I just like when I see those aha moments in people, when they get motivated to do more of something that they are passionate about or what their purpose in life is, it really also energizes me, makes me inspired, and so the life just gets better.
All right, so since you brought it up, what are your top 5 strengths? And could you actually give the audience, for those who like, I obviously know what Strengthsfinder is. Right. I took it back in May of 2010. Could you give the audience just like a 30-second overview on what Strengthsfinder is? And then I'd love to hear what your strengths are. Maybe your top 5.
Right. So Strengthsfinder is a personality assessment designed by, now it's Gallup organization. But it was this gentleman, Don Clifton, who got interested in positive psychology because he was trying to understand what makes people good at what they are, what makes them experts. So they interviewed back, I think it was 1980s, they interviewed millions of people trying to understand what they're good at and what makes them good at what they do. And what they found out is that it's a very human thing to do. We normally take all of our talents and strengths for granted. We don't notice them, and because it's so innate to us, we expect that everyone else is as good at this one thing that we are. And we tend to focus on the weaknesses. And like, oh my God, I'm not good at this, or I'm not good at that. And so you sort of obsess about that, but it's not a good thing to do. It's not, productive. And so what they decided to do is to help people understand how to, first of all, identify their strengths and capitalize on them, because when you focus on the positive, you can accomplish pretty much anything. And you need to only manage your weaknesses. We don't even talk about, what is wrong with you, or the weakness is a weakness. We talk about managing them. And so when you take the test, you look at your top 5 and you start noticing some certain behaviors that are, natural to you, and you start looking at them together, and this makes you unique. My top 5 are empathy, responsibility, restorative, learner, and input.
Cool. Empathy.
Yes.
That must be awesome for your photography work as well. It must show up in your art. Like being able to I see that from combining your empathy with behind the cameras, like actually like feeling the energy and the emotion of your subjects if you're shooting people, and then capturing that through the lens. That's super cool.
Yeah, it definitely helps me, because so empathy is basically you being able to read emotions instantaneously right away, so whether it's a negative or a positive emotion. So definitely when I am, especially when I photograph events, I feel like I'm a wildlife photographer, because I watch people, and I look for those moments of joy, or whatever the event is about, right? And so I am ready to capture those. And in portraiture, when I'm in one-on-one interactions with people, I can also explain like what facial microexpressions work or don't, and why. And so empathy definitely is one of those superpowers that I have that helps me, and not only in photography, obviously, but also build relationships with people. It's a nice one to have.
Yeah, that's good. I think my wife would love if that was more my superpower. Mine are, I'll just share mine. My top 5 are competition, woo, which is winning others over, communication, maximizer, and futuristic.
Yeah. Those are also cool, beautiful. Too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool. The competition is always to me, that's like such a powerful thing, but also can be so not that fun, because everything to me is a competition, which life isn't always a competition, or maybe it is. I don't know. But anyway, it's all good. The whole point of Strengthsfinder is that however we are, we're good. Like that's who you are. That's how you were created, and here you are, and this is the things you have. And how do you work with them and maximize?
Yeah, how do you tap into them to maximize your potential and do anything you want really in life? Because at Gallup we talk about. So when you take the assessment, this is actually one of the things that people sometimes would like the test to tell them. We don't tell you what you should be doing in life, but we can definitely tell you how you can achieve a certain goal by, again, capitalizing on your talents, on your strengths.
Yeah, super cool. Well, I'm sure we'll continue to talk about this. This is so core to the work that you put out into the world. So let's move on to the next question for you.
Sure.
So what's something that's inside of your comfort zone that might be outside of somebody else's comfort zone?
Oh, Jason, I've been thinking about this. It's so funny even with the definition of comfort zone, like staying in or stepping out. And I don't know if maybe because I've done a lot of personal development work in the past few years, I don't even know what my comfort zone is or isn't. And one of the things that I've been, pondering about was like, for example, you take public speaking. Somebody would say, "Oh my God, I can't imagine being on stage. It's terrifying."
Yeah, it's a common one.
Right. And what's funny is like, I have a personal story about public speaking when I was probably 8 or 9. And you can probably tell, or your audience can tell from my accent, that I'm not from the United States. I grew up in Soviet Union and Soviet Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the age of 9, there was like probably 10 kids put on stage for this. I think it was like a May Day holiday or something like that. And we were supposed to recite this, cute Soviet rhymes. And I was terrified because I grew up a very, very quiet, timid child. And so for me, being on that stage and all of the lights, shining in your face, and you see all of those, parents in the audience. And to me, it felt like everybody was staring at me and they were laughing at me. But of course, like now as a grown up, I'm thinking those parents were just so, they probably found us so adorable, and they're just sitting there smiling and giggling at us, making all of this, uh, you know, I don't know, like reciting those poems. So anyway, and then fast forward to a few years, when I'm already, a grown up, mature woman, and I recently did um, I participated in this, what is it called? Spotlight. Like I was on stage performing a ballroom dance with my instructor. And I loved that, I loved being on stage. I loved the attention or the spotlight, but in a good sense. And so, going back to that being, out of your comfort zone, I feel like you are, you have those thoughts in your head where it's like, oh, I can't do that. But have you tried? Have you, uh, have you tried going through this thoughts and understanding why you would be afraid of that, or why wouldn't you want to do it? And so for me now, public speaking, the way I think about it is that if I were on stage talking about something that is really interesting to me or something that I'm really passionate about, I would do it.
So you'll take it on even if it's outside your comfort zone.
Right. I would.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, when you're inspired by something, and you're motivated to share your message, like again, we're talking about public speaking, right? If you are, I feel like you can overcome those fears.
Yeah. Very cool. That's I'm thinking about that for myself. I'm similar to you, that there's not many things that I'm not willing to take on. Yeah, I think that's something that happens for people that are into self-development work. This is a common theme, actually.
Right.
When you get to know yourself and you get to do, some intense work on yourself, at least for me, what you just realize that the stakes aren't really that high.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and maybe it's an age thing as well. Maybe like I'm a parent, so you just realize like, oh, like get up on stage and people are going to think your speech isn't the greatest thing ever. You're like, well, who cares? Like, yeah, the date doesn't really matter. I'm not doing it today for money. But no, I think that's super cool. And it sounds like you had to do a lot of work to actually get into the space you're in now, as opposed to, which I think is common. So I'm going to flip that question around on its end, and talk about something that is outside of your comfort zone that might be inside of somebody else's. So I know you said there's nothing, but everybody's got something.
I should probably rephrase that a little bit. So it's not that I said that there's nothing for me that is outside of my comfort zone. Of course, there are things. Right now, it is actually sharing we all have stories, right? And some of them are more vulnerable than others. And so for me, what is outside of my comfort zone right now is sharing those sort of publicly, right? So I am quite comfortable having a conversation with someone face to face, and I can share all kinds of different stories about my life. But then taking them online is a completely different level, So that is right now something is outside of my comfort zone. Or even doing this podcast, it's like it's like, okay, this is fun. I know that I will be talking about the things that I love. I will be talking to the person that I like a lot, who is my friend. But there's still something that is making me nervous, But I'm still doing it.
Yeah. So here we are. Here we are. That's great. Yeah. So for some people, what's outside their comfort zone, they're just not even willing to explore. You've got things outside your comfort zone, but you're willing to do them anyway because you know that that's an opportunity for growth. And I think that's cool, super cool.
Yeah.
Great. So on the subject of public speaking, I'm going to give you 5 minutes on the world stage. You get to give a speech to the world. You have 5 minutes.
Oh,
what would you? What would you give your speech on, and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. I wish you would have sent it to me before so I can prepare.
Can't make it too easy for you.
Right, of course. I think again, it's because this is what I observe talking to people, or again, we tend to spend so much time on the negatives in life, or in your professional life, personal life, all of those different things. And I feel like it's such a waste of time. And I feel like if the person was able to sort of reframe it very, very quickly for themselves, we would not have to waste so much time on dwelling on the negative stuff, right? And you would achieve so much more. And I see that also with portraits. It's no matter who is in front of me, whether it's a woman or a man. I find it fascinating that it's they sometimes, quite often actually, they always look at some flaw that they think that they have, which actually isn't, but maybe somebody has told them that this is a flaw. And I try to always say, but look at your eyes, look how bright your eyes are, look how beautiful you are, this is actually a very interesting characteristic that you have, this is your feature. And so like helping them reframe that is so important. I was and another thing that I was thinking also recently, I saw this story on Reddit, how one person, I think it doesn't matter, one person, he posted a question about, he's like, what is a good solitary activity that one can do to sort of distract themselves from how bad their life is. And it was a very engaging discussion. I was just reading through all of the comments, and there were, I don't know, I think there was like close to 50,000 comments under the thread. And people are obviously good-hearted, they're trying to help, and they were giving him some good advice, like some very interesting activities. But as I was reading this, I was wondering, okay, so let's say he will go and do XYZ activities, all of them, all 50,000 of them, let's say, right?
All 50,000.
Right. But then he comes back to that life that he thinks is bad, like he is in some bad spot. And then so sure, you can distract yourself with all of this, excitement, but it's not, how fulfilling is that? So like, again, going back to that question that you asked me, what I would be talking about is probably how to find, I certainly believe that we have answers within ourselves. And so, how do you find what is your sort of purpose in life? Like, what makes you inspired? What motivates you? What gets you up in the morning? So this is something that I would be talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 50,000. That's amazing. What's the thing when I'm feeling bad to do? They're like, here's 50,000 answers for you without knowing anything about you. That's
exactly.
Cool.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. I was like,
yeah.
I was really glad to see how many people are ready to help, but you don't even know this. How everything on Reddit is like anonymous. There are no pictures, or there's nothing, right? So you don't know this person. And so that was, it took me, like I really thought about that. I thought, this poor guy, he will, go back to that life that he hates. And I don't know, it was just sad.
Yeah. Well, this is something that I'm guilty of, and something through coach training that you specifically don't do is you don't just give advice. Like,
right.
Oh, what do you need? Oh, make Katya feel better. Like, what do you need? And yes, there's always times you're going to have friends and colleagues, and of course, like your spouse and your kids and all those things where you're going to want to make people feel better. But when you just give people advice, it doesn't always work because they don't you don't know them, right? Like, so he's getting 50,000 things, and that's cool. Like, I'm sure it was helpful, but to me, it sounds like a cry for help. But more like, does somebody want to listen to me?
Yes.
Can somebody listen to me, as opposed to, like underlying all that is like, hey, like I'm crying out for help. Is anybody willing to spend time with me or listen to me? And I'm sure there's some great suggestions in there, but that's interesting. So at the beginning of your answer, I heard something as well that I just wanted to highlight that you got me thinking about is, and you didn't exactly say it this way, so apologies. I'm just gonna say it. It was around like we're all good how we are. Mm-hmm. Like people have their, and I'm guilty of this too. So I had my friend who recently shot a video for me for my website, and when we got done, he's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Well, if you have a way to like drop 20 pounds, like some sort of technology to like drop 20 pounds off the face and off the body, otherwise I love it." Versus like, it's great. It's who I am. That's who I am in the moment. And just seeing yourself as like perfect how you are. Like there's so much destructive. It's so destructive to always be looking for like what's wrong with you versus hey, like what's right with you.
Yeah.
So you got me thinking about that, which is
it's cool. It's also interesting. And you know what? I don't remember if I told you this. I started some sort of podcast, like it's a video series, recently myself. But the funny part about that is that I had the idea, and I actually shot the opening sequence 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I shot that, but I never did anything with it. So talk about procrastination and getting, out of your comfort zone. But anyway, so I finally recorded my first episode in August, I believe. And my client, my photography client, and I went back to the conservatory garden in Central Park because this is where we shot her session. She needed some branding photos for her coaching business. She's also a coach. And I remember I was terrified, and I'm meeting with my client at the Central Park, and I'm having I shouldn't say meltdown, but I was experiencing all the same things that all of my photography clients experience when they come to me. So I'm so comfortable being behind the camera that, me thinking that I need to be now in front of the camera and hosting this podcast and, making it interesting for people, I was terrified.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing is that, so this lady, my friend, actually become friends with all of my clients. And so I love that.
That's great.
So because we are part of the same community, and we got to know each other a little bit. So she talked me through that, 5 minutes before we started recording, which was amazing. Which, this is exactly what I also do for my clients. But yes, it's like I had to tell myself, give the same advice to myself as I always give advice to all of my clients, is that please do not, focus on everything that is wrong or what people will think, or, because people actually love you, like
Yeah.
they love you, and just focus on that.
Yeah. Super cool. So this is the part of the show where I'd love to hear about your journey to today. So far we've covered that you're originally from Russia,
Right.
and that you're a coach, and you are a photographer, and we also know that you're married because today is your anniversary.
Yes.
And I think that's, in terms of the journey to, what got us to today, near the end of 2019. Yeah, just love to hear about anything you'd like to share with us about your journey.
My journey. What's interesting is that my master's degree is actually in translation in interpretation. When I was a kid, I showed aptitude for the English language, or languages in general. So my dad at some point said, "Why don't you go and study English professional?" Which I did. So yes, I'm from Russia. My husband is originally from Los Angeles, but we met in St. Petersburg, my hometown. And we then went to Prague in Czech Republic. We lived there for about 5 years. Then we were in Vienna, Austria for about 3 years. And then we came to the States, to San Francisco Bay Area. This entire time while we were in Europe, I was freelancing as a translator, and I was doing pretty well, actually. But when we came back to the States, I don't know, like at some point I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It feels very lonely. It's me and my computer most of the time. And at that time I also was, started getting back into photography. I learned photography also when I was 9 or 10. My brother taught me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and I tried all different types of photography, abstract photography, street scenery. I would walk sometimes around Prague or Vienna, or I remember we also in 2008, we came to New York. So I was like walking around with my camera, taking pictures, all fun. But then at some point I realized that I'm missing that sort of emotional connection. And I wanted to start doing portraits, only I had no clue how to talk to people, or how to pose them, or how to guide them. That was also one of those things that was terrifying for me. But then I learned, and I think this actually going back to Strengthsfinder, around the same time, I also, I took the test. I started paying attention to how I react to things, what I do, what works, what doesn't, and through that assessment, I figured out a way, or rather, learned about myself, how I build relationships with people, how I build trust, which is super important, obviously, like for a photographer, portrait photographer, and also now as a coach. And so that helped a lot. And now this is something that I absolutely adore doing, helping people with beautiful pictures for their business, or whatever their reasons might be. And yes, and I already talked a little bit earlier how I got into coaching. Since I took that test myself, I would be having conversations with people, and it always would come up in one way or another. And so I got certified, and so here I am.
Here you are. Do you speak any other languages besides Russian and English?
So fluently, I speak 3 languages. So I am also fluent in Czech. I used to be fluent in French, but since I haven't really practiced it, it's kind of this is the thing about languages. Sometimes I feel like I can't even speak Russian anymore because I've been speaking English for so many years. But no, French was my second language at the university back in St. Petersburg. And then when we were in Vienna, I was studying German. Didn't really stick to me. I don't know why. I understand a little bit of Spanish, but like fluently, it's Russian, English, and Czech.
Got it. And do you still enjoy language and linguistics?
I don't know, like define enjoy, you know?
I know yeah. I'm just thinking like some people, they have a passion for language. Like I do not. I only speak English. This is a funny little, in college, I took American Sign Language. Which is really, cool. I mean, it's a cool language, but what's really funny about it is I work in sales. So, a lot of phone and now I run a podcast and I coach people. Not really it's not a language that lends itself to anything in the real world for what I want to do. I think it's a really cool language. To be totally honest with you, totally candid here on the podcast, the reason I did American Sign Language in college was because we met twice a week instead of 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
and it felt like the easiest language for me, which turns out it was not. which is a whole nother story sometime. But some people are like, oh, I love language. I love learning different languages. I've got our mutual friend Joe, who I've had here on the show, Joe Gonzalez, the movement coach, who's on here a couple weeks ago. He's learning Chinese right now, I believe, either Chinese or Japanese. I can't remember. And he loves it. He loves it. Like for me to go learn another language just does not it just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if you do you study anything or anything like that?
Well, I not really. I mean, I've done that for a little bit. I think if I had some sort of business need, right, I think I would learn it, and I think it probably would be easier for me than for other people because I've done that before. I understand how different grammar, of different languages work, but to just pick it up as like, oh, maybe I should go and study, I don't know, Portuguese. This doesn't come up for me. I think I would rather invest time in, I don't know, learning about strengths, within the Gallup framework. There are 34, as you and I talked about, and they come up in different people in different ways, right? Yeah. And so this is more interesting for me right now because it's also actually, now that I think about it, it's also almost like learning a language, right? Because you are trying to understand. It's also like 5 love languages. Did we talk about that? It's one of my favorite books.
Me too.
So, right. So I like, to answer your question, yes, I'm interested in languages, but in these types of languages.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
But I'm actually I'm curious. Hold on. I'm curious. You mentioned sign language. I wonder, does it somehow I also know that you studied body language and
I did.
Does it relate somehow?
Oh, good question. I've never thought about that. I don't. Man, it's been 20 years since I've done almost 20 years since I've done the sign language stuff. I don't know that it does actually relate because it's kind of, I think, so sign language, and I did American Sign Language, ASL. It's kind of like speaking verbally. You can do it very emotional. You can do it very outgoing, or you can be very reserved with it. So I don't know that so Katya, there probably is. I don't know that I see I think there probably is, but so where I do see this being a good, a thing is reading the micro expressions, but through hand movements and body movements of somebody who's speaking American Sign Language or communicating that format, there are likely, for people who are good at reading that format and are fluent in it, there's likely micro expressions there, just like there are micro expressions in the way we speak, not just in your face, but in the way we speak and say things. So yes, I am confident there are. You have now inspired me to look into this, because that's actually a super interesting topic. And you're right, I did do some body language stuff as well last year. Oh man, thank you. You just gave me something new to research. That's super cool. I had a question for you, but now you got me thinking about my stuff. This is about you. Come on, this is all about you. Okay. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So Russia.
Yes.
Prague, Vienna, San Francisco Bay Area, and New York. Mm-hmm. So you guys like the big cities, the cool city. Like, you like the cosmopolitan feel.
Yeah, I guess because both of us grew up in large cities. I mean, sometimes I do like living in New York, and with the, noises, construction noises or sirens. Sometimes I do want to be somewhere in a little, quiet village or something. But I also think that I will get not bored, but like I need human interaction. I need conversations with people. I love being in a large city for this reason.
Yes, me too. I grew up in the suburbs of St. Paul. So my town I grew up in is 30,000, but the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, in population I was there was 2.5 million. So pretty decent size. I'm also a huge city person, and I like my time. Like we've talked about, we have a place up in the Catskills in the town of 400. We were just there this week for Thanksgiving, and we're on 10 acres and can't really see anybody. So that could be very nice as well. But I'm with you. Like, I love people. And I know what I was going to ask you. You brought up the love languages.
Yes.
So what are your 5 love? Like, what are, do you know what yours are in the order?
My number one is definitely what's called physical touch. Like, I'm very
physical
cuddly.
Touch. Yep.
And then I think words of appreciation are important to me. For example, I love, like, when I am having a bad day, I love going to my website and reading testimonials from my loving clients.
That's great.
It just gives me so much, it puts me back in a good space, in a good mental space, energy, and everything like that. So I think this is important for me. Sometimes acts of service is also important, especially like in the married life. When you're tired and you kind of that you need to do something, but you kind of don't feel like it, and so if your spouse can relieve that duty and do something for you, which is it's an act of service, and then you feel loved. So so I think these 3 most important to me. Gifts, I'm not I don't know. And then the 5th one is quality time, right? So it's basically focusing your attention on the person, or I would say that quality time is actually one of my lesser sort of love languages, because when I am having a conversation with somebody, I do get upset if they're not with me, like if they're getting distracted by something. So I would say that, quality time. So I would say like physical touch, words of appreciation, acts of service, quality time, and then gifts is the last.
So you and I are almost opposite. So I am, I actually just took the test last month, and the top score you can get in a category is 12. And I think you can get a 0 in a category. I got a 12 for quality time. I'm a huge quality time person, which combine that with my almost complete extroversion. So I'm a 98% extrovert on the Myers-Briggs, coupled with quality time is like people for me. So doing things like a podcast with you is amazing, followed by acts of service, words of affirmation. I am not a physical touch person. So I was like a 3 on physical touch. And I think I either got a 0 or a 1 on gifts. Like I like giving gifts, but like receiving gifts, I'm like, no, like the gift for me is like, come spend time with me, be on my podcast, go hang out,
Yeah.
have a conversation, networking group. Like I don't need gifts. With that being said, if anybody who's listening would like to donate a gift to me, like in cash, that's great. I'm always down for money. You can always send me money, but otherwise, my GoFundMe link will be in the show notes. It's perfect.
That's so funny.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So Katya, what are you passionate about?
What am I passionate about? I'm passionate about helping as many people. I was actually also thinking about this. Maybe I should set a goal for myself for 2020. Like, how many people do I want to help? To do like make little changes in their mindset, so to say, right? So yeah, this is again, it all goes back to the same thing that I keep talking about, because I cannot not talk about it, because I feel like it's so important. So yeah, I'm passionate about helping people, have better lives through loving themselves, through looking at what they're good at, what they're excellent at, rather than, looking at the bad stuff. Because I've been in that space for a few years myself, meaning like I would be depressed or beating myself up about something or something like that. This is such a nasty place to be, and I don't want that for anyone. So my passion is to help people get out of that space.
Yeah, that's cool. It's very cool. What's the thing that you're most proud of? And everything, and you've obviously done a lot. You've talked about a lot of different cool things you've done. You've lived in a lot of places. What's the thing out of all that you're most proud of?
I think right now I'm most proud of those little love notes that I mentioned that are on my website, my testimonials from my clients, because none of them are written by me. Some of them are, sometimes like you ask for a letter of recommendation and somebody says, well, why don't you like write it and then I'll sign it. So
I know, that's so annoying. I mean, it's not, I understand, but I had somebody say like, hey, why don't you write it and then I'll sign it. I'm like, no, I actually want to hear from you.
Yeah. So anyway, so those little things, they are, some of them are, obviously like when we are building our businesses, we do ask for testimonials, right? So some of them are those that I actually would ask a person to write for me, but some of them are really honestly unsolicited. And those are the most, my most favorite. And so the reason I'm proud of those is because it, validates what, I do, and how I do it is important to people, and they see the value, and yes, I'm proud of that.
Yeah, that's great. It's really great. Next question, a little bit different. Is what is something that you are afraid might actually be true about you?
That I'm afraid might be true about me. I think sometimes I myself personally dwell on a thought that I may come across as a nasty person, because it may be something to do with where I come from. Russians, we are known to be very direct, and so sometimes I can be direct, and I feel like if the person, I have a very strong personality, so sometimes it sort of scares people. And so, so sometimes and this, with empathy, this is so funny. It's like I see instantaneously when a person is not having a good moment with me. It's like, and then I go into that like, Oh my goodness. I just said something I should not have, or I said something in a way uh, that is not, that the person was not ready to hear. And I'm not saying that I'm, saying some, I'm not calling anyone names, but sometimes I can be very direct in sort of stating things as they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like holding a mirror to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and not everybody is capable of handling it in that particular moment. And then I feel bad that I came across as a mean, nasty person.
Have
But so
you
I don't
actually
know.
been, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you actually been told that you come
Um,
across as mean or nasty?
yeah, in the past, many years ago, which is also, it actually brings me back to that point that I was making. Like, I want people to not ever be in a space of vulnerability, because when you're hurting other people. You know what I mean? It's like when
Mm-hmm.
you're in a, when you're in a bad space, like when you're depressed, it's I think it's in psychology, sort of, it's called something like victim mentality or something like that. You're like
Yeah, victim
blaming
mentality.
everybody. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
like
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a concept in coaching that we call being at cause or being at
Mhm.
effect.
Mhm.
You probably learned about this in some of your work, but it's a similar idea that being at effect just means that it's somebody else's fault, it's the world's fault,
Yeah.
and being a victim versus I'm at cause for what I want. I'm at cause for building my business. I'm at cause for making the money I want to make. And what are the decisions
Yeah.
that you as Jason and you as Katya can make for yourself, independent of all the circumstances around you that are going to lead you to there? And yes, there's things we can't control, but there is a lot more we
Yeah.
can control than what people give
Right.
themselves
Yeah.
credit for.
Yeah. But to that, respect, I also want to say that I personally believe that every person is, you know they're a good person. um we're all born with, like, I forget where I read this, but it's something like, have you ever seen an angry baby? you know so I think we're all good to begin with, and then but then some, life events may cause you to think otherwise, like somebody is attacking you or something like that. So, and if you're not able to handle it, then you sort of project some stuff and you can hurt someone
Yeah.
unintentionally.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about your philosophy on life, but I think you've kind of weaved that in throughout this. So,
Yeah.
is there anything regarding the philosophy around, you know, just humanity? Like, you're obviously a lover of people. Like, empathy is your number one strength. So you obviously have a huge, what's the word? Huge container / capacity for holding people's things, and you obviously
Hmm.
love people. So I think that's, like, to me, what I'm getting from all this is, excuse me, one of your overarching ways that you operate in the world is with a lot of love for just humanity, whether you know the people or not.
Hmm.
And that philosophy then lends itself to doing coaching work and being
Right.
an amazing photographer. Is there anything else around your philosophy that you'd like to share with the audience that you think would be valuable?
Right. So recently, it's actually been pretty simple for me. So I believe in two things: anything is possible, and there's another statement that I sometimes repeat to myself is I'm responsible, right? So anything is possible in the sense that, and again, it's going back to the strength psychology, is if you are focusing on the positives, it has this ripple effect, and you can really achieve anything what you set your mind to, because it also helps you to tune out the negative self-talk that we all
Hmm.
have. And I'm responsible is, it's tying into what you were just talking about. I'm responsible for being in XYZ situation. If you're not happy in that situation, there's something that you may have not communicated, or you were not true to yourself by putting yourself into that situation. So once you are once you admit to yourself, once you take responsibility, it's easier to get out of XYZ situation, XYZ relationship, to achieve whatever. If you want a raise, if you're like, working for someone, and if you want to get a raise, you are the one to go and talk to your manager and, share what your value is and why you deserve the raise. So I'm responsible is one of those very simple and yet very powerful philosophies that I believe in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's so missing in our world of each of us is responsible and making decisions from the place of it's what's possible when I make those decisions and I'm responsible for those versus having to, like you said, the old saying in the business world is like, nobody's going to take care of you. Whether you've got the best manager ever, at the end of the day, nobody's going to go hand you a big raise because they think you deserve it. Well, not nobody. It happens. But generally you have to go and say, I want a raise and here's why, or I want this new job and here's why it benefits the company and also why it's aligned to what I want. So, and then I think that's also true in, you see that all the time in relationships where people are afraid to speak up on what they want.
Yes.
And just relationships, whether it be romantic or friendships and family as well.
Yeah. Because, it was funny, I was just talking to someone also, how sometimes, you have, we all have either friends or relatives or whoever in our lives who do not, like, let's say you are of entrepreneurial mindset, right? And you are trying to do all these different things. And so, and let's say you are still working either full-time or part-time. And so every little amount of free time that you have, you probably want to spend on building your business, right? Because that's your dream. And then there are some people who are not of that mindset, and they don't understand, like what are you doing, or why can't you spend time with me, or something. But they also don't see how. And then sometimes we fall into this, like, oh, but I have to explain something to this person, and then there's this judgment and all of this stuff. But again, communicating your, being very, very transparent and explaining why it's important to you in a very calm way, actually, not getting defensive. This is, this also removes all these miscommunications and judgments and hurt feelings and all of this. But again, it's on you. You're responsible for having that transparent conversation with someone, and if you're being judged for it, well, again, have a conversation with them, I guess. But I feel like there's so much of the of bad things happen because we don't sometimes communicate.
Yeah. Well, Katya, it's been amazing having you on today. And it was really fun for me personally because we've gotten to know each other a bit, but we don't know each other that well. And I've learned a ton about you.
Oh, thanks.
And I've shared a few things about myself as well that I haven't shared with the audience before. So thank you for being thought-provoking and inspiring for me as well. I want to make sure that, well, if the audience, I'd love to have the audience connect with you. Like your Instagram handle is beautiful. You have a great website. I want everybody to read the testimonials that you yourself like to read. So where can the audience find you?
Very simple. My first and last name, KatyaNicholas.com. My Instagram handle is also Katya Nicholas. And I'm on LinkedIn if anyone would like to join me there.
Cool. And I'll be sure for the audience that I'll put the links in the show notes as well. So people have that if they'd like to connect with Katya, which I highly recommend you do. And just to wrap up, I'd like if you'd like to leave us with some quick words of wisdom, so maybe 1 or 2 sentences. And I feel like I'm having you repeat the same things you've been giving us for the last hour, but I'm going to challenge you to do, maybe this is the thing outside your comfort zone, continue to give us your amazing philosophy. Like what's a 1 or 2 sentences you'd like to leave the audience with?
Wow. Words of wisdom. Love yourself. I don't know. It's very simple. Love yourself. Don't be hard on yourself, because it's so interesting how we tend to find. It's so easy for us sometimes to find compassion for someone else, but not for yourself. And so I wish for everyone to be as compassionate to yourself as you are to your friends, your family, your children, everyone around you. Just be tender with yourself.
Yeah. I love that. I had a friend who sent me this thing a couple months ago, and it was, if you had a friend who treated you like you treat yourself, how long would you be friends with that person for?
Right.
And I was like, I would not be friends with that person. So yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to give you a treat / embarrass myself.
Uh-oh.
Yep. That's what I like to do. And I'm going to say, help me, spasibo.
Spasiba.
Spasiba, which means thank you in Russian, I believe. So spasiba for being on the podcast today. I gave it a try outside my comfort zone, speaking Russian.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and challenging me to do this, because we established it is a little bit of my comfort zone right now, but I feel like the more and more I do things like that, the more they will become my second nature.
Yeah. Well, seriously, thank you, Katya. It's been amazing having you on today, and stay warm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.